We'll be rounding out this week of Locked On NHL in Utah. They're down to officially 6 team names for the new Utah NHL club. What could it be? We'll talk about that and give you our predictions for the 2024 Stanley Cup Final. All in today's episode of Locked On NHL in Utah.
You are Locked On NHL in Utah, your daily podcast on all things hockey in Utah, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Everyone, to today's episode of Locked On NHL in Utah. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 with any winning $5 bet. It's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. I'm your host, Robyn Leonio, alongside Tom Callahan. We continue this week as we talk, get you ready for your new Utah NHL club, as well as just talk other NHL hockey as we're getting ready for the Stanley Cup Final coming up in a little bit, Tom. And we'll get our predictions towards the end of the show, but we have a lot to get to and a lot to unpack of what's been going on in this last week for Utah hockey.
Yeah, it's been quite a bit, and I mean, I'm sorry that I'm just coming in on the tail end of this, Robyn. As you know, I was traveling this week a little bit too, so but it's good to be getting back to talking about hockey, to talking about what's going on, because there has been a lot of news this week, and I think that's cool for us to have a lot to chat about. So I'm looking forward to it. Wherever you want to dive in, we can go ahead and take this, because there's a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah, I mean, maybe we can go a little bit in order. What we have a little bit on the side right here that for those who are watching on YouTube. Let's start with talking about the season tickets. We've kind of known for a little bit it's been going up. I think it was like they hit like 20,000, I believe, in the first like 24 hours, whatever it was, and now it's like 34,000. We have 30,000 on here. I just rounded the nearest 10,000 on based off of visual appearances here because the zeros look good. But no, it's over 34,000 season ticket deposits, Tom, which is to me, I didn't expect it, but at the same time, it just really shows that this city is ready for NHL hockey.
They are, and you know, there's some good and some bad in this, and I know as some former Coyote fans are looking at this and they see, they're going to sell obstructed seats and all this other stuff. They're going to renovate the lower bowl. Look, it's not the best arena out there. It's right. Going to be a retrofit. Although I will say, look at Seattle. Seattle did an amazing job with their retrofit. I was actually talking with the voice of the Predators, Pete Weber, about it this week, and what a great job they did. And so that gives him a lot of hope for what they can accomplish with this Utah arena and what they'll be able to do with the retrofit there. But yeah, earlier this week, they had a Zoom call. The team's chief commercial officer, Chris Barney, told the reporters that it's 34,000 now for people who placed a deposit. Now, obviously, they're not selling that many tickets. They got up to about 29,000. But what does that mean? So it's $100 deposit, and it puts you on the list. But that means so Robyn, here's the mind-blowing part of this to me. Even though people have known for the last 5 weeks that there's almost 30,000 people already signed up, another 5,000 put down their money to get in line for season tickets. That's incredible. That is absolutely amazing to me, to know that even though you know your name number 32,352, you're like, you know what? Here's my deposit. I want Utah hockey. Let's make this happen. That's wild to me.
I mean, it's like one of those things, and I mean, it's a very different scenario because we're talking, what's the quote new kid on the block versus something that's been around for a while. But there, we've seen experiences of clubs, of like sports franchises having waiting lists to get season tickets, and so that's not unheard of. So to see this for a first season for an NHL team, that they only found out about it 2 months ago. Like, it's very impressive, right? The fact that the quick turnaround of how that's going, and how willing people are willing just to put down that money and say, you know what, I want to be able to at least get the opportunity to get seats, even if it potentially could be an obstructed seat, because I think only 10,000 seats will be unobstructed, and then
Yeah, and
And
they're talking about up to about 16,000. So you're talking maybe 6,000 partially obstructed view seats.
which is interesting. And I think only those remaining 6,000, they said they would be used for quote select games. I'm kind of curious what they're considered, what will be considered those select games, what will be going with that. Because if the demand is that high, I'm kind of curious what they, what their workaround is going to be. Because it's going to be tough to be able to get all those fans and to be able to experience Utah hockey.
So here's your conundrum in this situation is number one, especially for people experiencing the product for the first time, you want them to have an excellent time and go out and tell everybody about it and want to come back.
Yep.
So you want them to have the best experience possible. A blocked view seat is not the best way to do that. Now,
Nope.
if you have season tickets there, and especially if you're used to some of the old buildings, look, there used to be poles and columns in the way or walls. And I think in today's game, it is actually a little easier to sit in an obstructed view seat because what do you do when you're obstructed? Your eyes will go to the scoreboard. So
Yep.
you can watch the game essentially on a giant television. Um, and you're still there. You're still in the building. You're still getting the experience. And the experience, the game and your seat is part of it. It's a big part of it, but it's also going to be what's in the concourse, what's outside the building, what is the atmosphere like, everything that comes from the moment you park your car or get off your transit and get into the arena. And that walk up to the arena, what's it like around the building is all part of the experience.
Right. I
That's where
think a
they got
lot of,
tone. But it again, just to finish the thought, an obstructed view seat, I understand why they don't want to sell them all the time.
yep.
Because if you think someone is going to have a bad time because they can only see one half of the ice, I don't know why you would sell that seat. So I get it.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. And I think that kind of goes with a lot of the negative talk that's kind of coming from Arizona fans and kind of that's putting on their thoughts about it. Because Arizona fans know all too well, from the early days of the Arizona Coyotes with America West Arena in downtown Phoenix, which is now known as the Footprint Center. The Coyotes spent time there, and they had the exact same problem. It was meant for basketball, not for hockey, and you
Right.
had the goal, like a whole like goal line completely obstructed. You couldn't even see a third of the ice, and people were complaining. People said it was an issue. There was a reason why they wanted to get out of there, wanted to move. I think they were at the time they were considering either Scottsdale or Glendale. We all know the history, what happened there, and that in kind of in the decades that happened since then.
Yeah.
But it's been, but I feel like that's kind of where a lot of the negative thoughts are coming towards because you're getting a little bit of the same situation. But I feel like, and as you're saying, that Utah knows this. This club knows that. The franchise knows that they're going to have obstructed seats. So they're not going to try to like force sell them. It's like, oh, people want to get tickets. So we'll just sell them something. But if you give them an obstructed seat, they might not come back.
Right. And the other part of that too, that not that Utah has to be careful with, because you do have a lot of people lining up to sample your product, but you have to at least be aware of is the fact that I hear some people saying, well, they're going to sell seats along the ice for $290. That's going to be so expensive. People, what do you think seats cost along the ice in the NHL? In some buildings, they're $500, they're $1,000, they're $2,000. $290. I laughed when I saw that and then saw people were mad at that price for a glass seat. I'm like, you kidding me? That's relatively cheap depending on your location, especially when there's this much demand. So I don't know, some fan groups must be very spoiled by that because that to me is, I don't want to say it's reasonable because it's not reasonable for my wallet, but it is reasonable in light of what the NHL charges to sit down on the glass. So I don't know. I was not particularly moved or swayed by any of the arguments about it, but what I'm going to be interested to see is what the plan is then to leave. I mean, even the Islanders a couple of years ago, remember when they were playing in the Barclays Center in Brooklyn,
Exactly.
and they
Terrible
had
sight
the
lines.
same problem. A beautiful new arena was not built for hockey. It was built for basketball. So, that's the problem you have. I think though, to consider the point that the NHL is making really by moving this franchise is number one, they did not see a solution from Alex Mariuello And that's what
Right.
they wanted to see. They needed a plan. They never got one. Nothing concrete. It was, oh, well, we're going to try this land auction. Oh, well, they didn't have an answer. And so
Right.
Ryan Smith
And
has an answer. He has an
yeah,
arena. He has a
yep.
plan. So
Even
that made it better.
and even to some extent, Jesus, to some extent, there is it's either, like, plan A, new arena, or plan B for him is renovate Delta Center, which
Right.
is, I feel like, which I feel like is certainly possible. I think that's from the early press conference. I think that's where he was leaning towards initially, because he doesn't want to abandon downtown Salt Lake City, because that's kind of where the hub is. That's where you want people to be.
And I don't mind that at all. I think that, depending on the city, downtowns are going through revitalizations. Some of them are coming up faster than others, but I agree. And I think if you look at most NHL arenas, they're in a hub. Not all of them. Not
Yeah.
all of them are in a downtown core, but for the most part, even Los Angeles in New York, Madison Square Garden is smack in the middle of it all, and Staples. Well, it's not Staples anymore. It's crypto.com, I think.
Yeah.
But it's right down there, LA Live, and it's all part of that little area that's been built up around there, right next to the convention center. Like, there's so much going on, and cities around the country. Now, there are other examples. Edmonton is a destination arena, something like that. Calgary's is a little bit away from downtown, but it's just, everybody's a little different. But I think for a city like Salt Lake that seems to be on the rise, that is, building up and really is getting bigger and better all the time, being part of the downtown core is a smart choice. Now, the question is, in the course of renovating this arena, at what point do you surpass the cost of a new one? Because construction costs are not cheap either way. And depending on how much you need to do to hit NHL standards, because I'm sure they're going to give them a pass this year. They're going to try to get as much stuff to NHL standard this year as they can. But I'm sure because of how fast this was forced to happen, they're going to get a pass on a few things. And we may never hear what those things are,
Right.
but trust me, it'll happen. So when you need to get to that, how much does it cost? New arena, old arena, get some land, build something. How long are you in, the old arena? There's a lot of factors there.
Absolutely. A lot of things to discuss, and we'll keep you guys all posted on what's going on with the arena situation for Utah, for Salt Lake City, as we try to figure out, hey, what's coming up for this club, for the team we don't know yet. Speaking of that, we're going to talk about the final 6 names that are made official earlier on Thursday. So when you all listening this, you're listening to this on Friday, so earlier yesterday, and we'll talk about that though right after this. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level up to peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We'll keep things rolling on today's episode of Locked On NHL in Utah. Let's get to a little bit of name talk, Tom, because I talked about it earlier this week when Ryan Smith, I think, said on a radio show that they were down to 4 names. It looks like they're down to 6 names indeed. So it was the 4 names I mentioned earlier this week, where we have the Yeti, the Outlaws, the Blizzard, and the Mammoth. But looks like the 2 other names are also in the final 6, including Utah Hockey Club / Utah HC, as well as the Utah Venom. Your thoughts, Tom?
So it was supposed to be a vote to cut it down to 4, but what ended up happening in the voting process was 60% of the total votes went to those 6 names. So they felt that those were the overwhelming favorites. it was fair to include 6 instead of 4. And you know what? It's their game, it's their rules. So if they
Right.
want to change it and add 2 more, that's fine. I don't mind that at all. I, so it's funny. You and I talked a little bit about Utah HC, and I've been thinking about this one for a while. I'm a big soccer fan. I love soccer, and I actually have finally decided that I don't think I want Utah HC. I think
Yeah.
that is a soccer naming convention. I think it speaks to a different. Now, look, I know you've got Real Salt Lake. I know you've got a strong MLS presence. I know it's a growing game in the United States, but it's a different game.
Yep.
And I think that I understand why it's popular right now because that type of convention is on the rise. But I'm a Yeti person. I have an affinity for Yetis, so I'm gonna root for Yeti. But a lot of the names are pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do. I love Blizzard just because I grew up in the land of ice and snow in Buffalo, New York. And I think there's a lot of things you can do with logos for a team named the Mammoth or the Outlaws or the Venom.
Yeah.
And they all make sense. They've all been explained well, but I think my number one, I would like to see the Yeti. I think that would be a cool one.
I think, yeah, Yeti is certainly on the top. I feel like the talk on social media has always been, it feels like it's destined to be the Yeti. Like, I don't know why it just feels that way. It just feels like there's a destiny for that. With the Mammoth, I think being a close number 2 behind, because those are I think the only 2 that have truly been mentioned by Ryan Smith himself, where the other ones are kind of just lagging. They're not really lagging behind, but they're there and they're decent choices, with the exception of Utah HC. I'm with you on that. Oh, and I mentioned on this, I think on the very first episode of the new NHL, Locked On NHL in Utah, is saying I don't mind Utah HC, but for under one condition, that if you decide if you say that will be the name for year 1, because that's not going to be, you're not going to have a name for year 1. But I want something rather than us saying NHL Utah or just something basic, something just we cannot really connect it with.
Or the team is going to get nicknamed by its fans, and it might be too late. It won't matter what you name it after a year of just being Utah. You know what I mean? The fans might come up with their own name for the team that sticks. Someone might throw something out in November, and all of a sudden the fan base goes, that's great. We're going to start calling them the Red Rockets. And then the next thing you know, they're the Utah Red Rockets. So I would like to see them just go ahead and get this taken care of this year. I understand they've got a lot on their plate, but that's why you hire graphic designers. That's why you hire people to get this stuff done for you and do it ahead of time. The other thing I will say, though, is with Utah being on the jerseys, I like the look of our Locked On Utah graphics with the kind of that, athletic looking font. But the other thing I thought would be cool is if you think back to the Minnesota Wild when they had the script Minnesota on their jerseys, if they did Utah in that same script, I think it would look nice.
It would.
I wouldn't mind a script on the jerseys, but whatever. I mean, they're certainly not going to ask my opinion, although I've seen so many bad jerseys. I just don't want a bad jersey. Please don't let it be bad.
I don't know why, but something about script and hockey just seems to work. Because I know for
Arizona's was nice.
Yeah, they had their Desert Night jerseys. They did as their third alternate jerseys. That script Arizona, it looked good. I liked it.
I even liked Anaheim's old script that they did. If anybody remembers that, throwing it back a little.
Remember, I think was it a script? I'm trying to remember if it was the San Jose Sharks' second reverse retro when they threw back to the Golden Seals. I think it was kind of
that one. I don't know. I think that was just more that 70s font, that 60s, 70s font. But I don't know. And now I'm going to look it up, and I'm going to have to find out.
Yeah, we're gonna have to find out. But there's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to this trademark. The names, the trademark, everything like that. I want to talk about the logos that got leaked and officially or put into the trademark office in just a sec. But there was kind of want to get your thoughts about this though, Tom, because from what my understanding is, from what I've been told, that the company that is working right now on the Utah Jazz new branding is the same that's working on this Utah Hockey Club's, the Utah, NHL Utah's branding, and it seems that they're going to be coinciding with one another. And when they dropped the purple and the purple base, I think with a little bit of baby blue in there for the Jazz, I thought to myself, okay, that'll take. I think at least it's a little bit step up from just the standard baby blue. I do like baby blue. I think it looks good, but I don't know. I'm just a fan of purple, maybe. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, I think we actually did talk about this on a previous show, like just trying to come up with teams that are purple. The Kings used to have a purple jersey. They don't anymore. They pretty much gone back to the monochromatic look, except when they wear their throwbacks. And I think that's kind of the fun thing, is everything old is new again with color schemes.
Right.
We went through that phase where the 70s color schemes were back. Now we're going through a phase, I think, where the 80s color schemes are coming back. The Houston Astros come to mind. I loved their 1980s jerseys that a lot of people call them the popsicle or the rainbow jerseys.
Right.
Had all the different colors in them. A lot of 1980s stuff was teams wearing baby blues, was teams wearing, more colors, looking a little bit different than they had. Baseball was going away from home white road gray, because different fabrics were making it possible to do that. And then you look at, the football teams that were coming in during the 80s and the 90s as expansion teams, and of course NHL teams coming in during that time. I mean, all you have to do is think of the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. They came in with that purple and that eggplant purple and the green, the Sharks with their Pacific teal, like all these teams and all these crazy colors that were in their logos. And so I think now we're seeing that as a resurgence again. So I don't know. I think if you're going to do baby blue, you could do purple with that. You could do silver with that. The Jazz did have, I remember, when I was a kid, I remember their Navy jerseys still had a lot of pops of color on them, different colors in the Jazz logo and the basketball. And so I wouldn't mind seeing, even a callback to a little bit of that. But man, like I say, I just don't want a bad jersey design. I don't want a bad logo. Whatever the team name is fine. But I just want it to be something that, doesn't look like it was a cartoon, and just something that is, I don't know. I don't like when it gets crazy and too dramatic. That's why I thought the Kraken did a great job, because there's a lot of directions they could have went and they kept it simple. Yeah. Great job for them.
It was funny though, because a lot of millennials kind of made fun of it for a little bit. It's call back to a lot of, a very middle school design. But I still thought
I remember seeing, and I still see that S graffitied everywhere. But I like this in negative space logos. Big fan. So like the tentacle in the S.
Oh yeah,
the Kraken.
I love that kind of when you're able to do that. It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
But there is a logo that a couple logos, I should say, several logos that were put into the trademark office. When I talked about it on Monday, I thought it was initially it was just a leak. Turns out it's become an actual part of the trademark office. So I'll go ahead and drop it again for all to share. At least this is just one of the 4, I think, that were submitted to the trademark office, and all named Utah Hockey Club, which is interesting to me. We talked about it earlier, Tom, with that baby blue and black.
So now, and as I'm looking at this, is Utah, the word Utah, is that in navy blue? So it's black, navy blue, baby blue, and white?
I think Utah's black. At least it's hard to tell from me. I mean, maybe my color.
I think it kind of looks navy blue to me. That's interesting. So almost, what that's kind of, if anybody's familiar with the Maine, University of Maine Black Bears jerseys, it's kind of following that color scheme. So that's interesting to me, which I like, by the way. It's a great color combo, and no one's really taking advantage of that kind of color combo in hockey right now. The Florida Panthers did have a jersey, that baby blue color. They wore it for a little while. They don't wear it anymore.
The Columbus Blue Jackets did for a little bit, I think, too. Like
they did, and they didn't wear it very much. They've kind of gone back to their dark blue. I think that's a gap right now that no one's filling in pro hockey. So the Milwaukee Admirals are the only team that comes to mind that
And that's
has a jersey that color that's pro.
Yeah, which is, again, take advantage of it. If there's no team that currently holds on to that, you can do something like it and make, as long as you make it look good. Because that's what we said. As long as you make it look good, don't overdo it, but also don't make it look like it was done in Microsoft Paint.
Right.
Like legit. Like I honestly though, I feel like there are those two ends, and I feel like it's interesting because I feel like so many, and again, not to rag on Coyotes fans, they're going through some intense emotions still. Right. So they see this logo and they're like, "Oh my god, this looks like a fifth grader, or it's done by a fifth grader." I get I get how them being that upset, but at the same time, like
that's not the logo though. That's for year one until they name the team. And even if they do name it Utah HC, I don't think they would necessarily. Maybe they'll keep that as like a quote unquote throwback. But
there was one where that looked a little bit cooler, I think, than that. I think it was with the silhouette, the black silhouette of the Utah, of the state of Utah, where it said Utah Hockey Club on it. I thought that would looked really awesome for a shoulder patch. So it could be an option. There are so many options out there. I think those are the only two I liked. I think that the other two were kind of just very generic. I just didn't, even for a year one, I wouldn't want to have seen. But the one I just showed up and the silhouette of the state, I feel like you could see in some capacity.
So it seems to me like they have almost pretty much settled on a color scheme, right? So if you look at those names, what names does that color scheme fit? It fits Blizzard. It fits Utah HC, obviously, because any colors fit that. And it fits Yeti. Those are the three names that color scheme fits.
Yeah, I think it even could fit Mammoth pretty well. It could.
I guess it could. If you made the Mammoth white, yes, I think you could.
Yes. So they're like Outlaws, maybe a little bit. They're definitely less so, but
yeah, Outlaws might have a different color scheme too, in my mind, and Venom probably has a different color scheme.
But they're definitely leaning into the very like icy winter, like that's what this baby blue is. I think, like maybe they don't even use baby blue as the name. Maybe it's like they're calling it like, I don't know, icy blue or frost blue or powder blue or whatever what they're using.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that is exactly what they're kind of leaning into there. So yeah, I could see Mammoth, but man, I really think Blizzard, Yeti are the two that stick out to me with that. And obviously, I mean, you could have this pink with purple polka dots for Utah HC. It doesn't matter.
This goes again for what I said just a little bit earlier, where it does feel like the team is just destined to be named the Yeti. It just feels like the decision's already there, and we're just kind of like playing a little game, Ryan Smith's little game. He already decided himself he wants it to be a Yeti. He just kind of wants to see how far it goes.
And that does happen. I mean, fans think their votes matter. Well, they do until they don't. I hate to tell you, fans, but at the end of the day, the guy with the money, he picks. I hate to pull back the curtain for people here, but when you're done, unless your vote tally has been public the entire time,
or even let's put it this way: if it's overwhelming, let's say like for some reason in this second round of voting for the top 6, like for some reason people decided, you know what, I'm gonna everyone decided to vote for the Mammoth and 0 vote for the Yeti, then your hand is in a little bit kind of forced, but.
Who would ever know, though? Robyn, if you're not showing your vote totals, nobody knows 98% of people voted for Mammoth. You just say, overwhelming, people love the Yeti. We're the Yeti. And that's what you do.
Saying a lot for, when we're talking about an owner who runs a survey company. But
I appreciate all of that, but I just, I've seen, unfortunately, I have seen how the sausage is made.
Fair enough. I mean, you've gone through a lot of that. Like, I feel like you.
Yes.
But let's get enough of that. We're gonna talk some Stanley Cup. Some maybe get our thoughts about that. Maybe even a little bit of more fun convo, a little bit more of like lighthearted stuff. We'll get to that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL as the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Final is finally due to start. And the FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home your win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. All right, we're running a little bit of overtime on this show already. We're getting to that point, but you know what? We're getting some good conversations here. The Stanley Cup Final, Tom, is set to begin fairly soon, and we got now officially set the matchup between the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. Unfortunately, that means I don't make my money, Tom, but you know what? That's okay. It's because to see Connor McDavid in the final, but also, if you want to go for the old Coyotes fan spin to it, get to see Oliver Ekman-Larsson try to go for a Stanley Cup final. So there's a lot of ways you can spin this if you're just a hockey fan in general.
Yeah, and what a resurgent year OEL had when a lot of people, I think, thought
he was done. Yeah,
he had nothing left. There's so many storylines. McDavid finally in the final. This is where he was supposed to take the Oilers however long ago, he and Draisaitl. Well, they're finally there, folks. And the goaltending matchup is great. The Panthers were in the final last year. Buffalo Bills fans are angry at the Oilers right now because of the comments. I don't know if you heard about that, but Coach Knobloch was asked how much the Stanley Cup experience matter for the Panthers, and he said, ask the Buffalo Bills how much Super Bowl experience matters, because Buffalo lost 4 straight. So, and I, as a Bills fan, know that very well. So that's gonna put Bills Mafia squarely against the Oilers. Canada hasn't won a cup since '93. The Montreal Canadiens were the last team to win a cup, 1993 for Canada. So that's an interesting storyline there. What's going to happen? So there's a lot going on. Besides the coaching thing, Paul Maurice is in his 3rd kick at the can. Is he going to be able to win it? And I mentioned the goaltending for Bobrovsky. He was a guy, remember when they signed him for that outrageous 10 million AAV hit, and it looked like it was going to be a total anchor.
Oh yeah, that first year was
boy, did that look like a mistake.
Atrocious. It was, oh my goodness.
Oh, everybody was just that you didn't even want to mention it, but fortunately for him, he's turned that around. It's still too much to pay for a goaltender in today's game, but he's turned it around. But now if he wins a cup, it kind of indicates all of that. So, and then he's going up against a guy in Stuart Skinner, who Edmonton spent a lot of money on Campbell coming over from the Oilers. He finished the year in the American Hockey League making $5 million. And then, the Oilers have even had to go to their guy who really started as the 3rd string this year in Cal Pickard, had to play some games. And Skinner comes back in. So now can Skinner redeem himself? The Oilers play a totally different style than the Panthers. A lot of people think the Panthers are going to run the Oilers out of the rink. How are the Oilers going to respond? Because they're not only are they more of a run and gun puck possession team, but now this is probably the heaviest team they have played in the playoffs. Yeah. I think Dallas kind of put them through a bit of the grinder, but Dallas is old and beat up. And I don't want to mention Pavelski. I know it'll make you cry. And then that Vancouver series was tough, right? The Canucks were tough.
Right.
Maybe the closest thing Edmonton faced to Florida, but Florida's a different animal. And the thing is, the Panthers in 12 playoff games, I think in 11 of those 12, 2 or less goals. And Edmonton needs to find a way to fill the net against Florida. There's so many things at play right here. So I love it. And it's not David versus Goliath. This is, the immovable object against the irresistible force.
Yeah.
It's such a clash in styles. I cannot wait. And my favorite stat, just because I'm a nerd like this, it is the farthest distance between two teams in Stanley Cup history.
Which is honestly astonishing given that we've had trying to think some of the ones that I've seen in recent memory. Like I want to say it was a little over a decade ago, like Vancouver versus Boston. I felt that was a pretty far distance to think that, Edmonton and and Florida is further. There's so many that are actually further that I didn't even think of, and I'm like, oh my god, like that's actually that's an astonishing stat to even think about and bring up, because who thinks about that?
Edmonton is so much further north than people realize, and me having flown there with Nashville for so many years. And we talked about this like a week or two ago when because I told you it was 5.5 hours to fly home from Edmonton to Nashville after a game. Then like Nashville to Miami would probably be another, I don't know, hour and a half, in the air, maybe 2 hours. So you're really looking at 7-8 hours to fly, plus customs going both ways. So this is a full day. This is a 12 to 14 hour endeavor just to get from one city to the other to play these games.
Which kind of answers the question why some people were complaining and asking why there was so much gap time between games for the Stanley Cup Final. Well, there it is, because there's so much travel time you have to do when you're going in between these series that like you just to have to go just a cut like essentially just a day off and back again, that would put so much stress on the bodies for these players, which is, you just don't want that.
And you don't get to skate. There's no practice. There's no staying in the flow. You're trapped on a plane for 7 hours, and that unto itself can be difficult. You got to get up, you got to walk around, you got to stretch. Some guys will just sleep. But it's not good for a normal human body, let alone an athlete. So these guys are really gonna have to figure out a way to keep themselves in the best possible shape as they can. And it's crazy to think about the distance they're going to cover. If this goes 7 games, so you start 1 and 2 in Florida. So for Edmonton, that's 2,500. Then back home, 2,500, games 3 and 4. Then back for game 5, 2,500, where it's 7,500. Now back for game 6, that's 10,000. And back to Florida for game 7 would be 12,500 miles in the air.
Oh God, that's too much.
If it goes 7.
If it goes the distance, literally.
It will go the distance. Yes.
It will go the distance. Oh God.
That's wild, isn't it?
It is wild to think about. It is absolutely wild to think about. And I'm curious to see what the draw will be for this. Outside of that, what the draw will be for the people watching these games, because you have all of Canada now. Now that the freaking you have Canada, a Canadian team in the finals again. I feel like it wasn't recently. I think Montreal was in the finals only a couple of years ago.
During the bubble.
Yeah, during that COVID year. But this is a very different situation, and I feel like maybe you have that bit of where you have all of Canada now kind of, again, backing Edmonton, because like you said, they haven't won it since 93. But I feel like all of a quote non-traditional market hockey fans are going for Florida because they want to keep proving that, hey, hockey works in these non-traditional markets. So it's like, I feel like from a fan perspective, you could really go, you could pick any kind of storyline you want to kind of make your reason why you're going to pick this team to win.
Yeah, you really can. And, like you say, there'll be fans who maybe are in original 6 markets that root for one or the other for their various reasons. There's going to be fans in Canada who hate the Oilers and are rooting for the Panthers. Then here's the subclass that no one talks about are the hockey fans who just tune out now because there's not a popular team in there. Their team's not in there. Not everybody sits down and watches the Cup Final that is a big time hockey fan. Mm-hmm. A lot of people do, but some people are just going to tune it out and read about it the next day. So there's going to be that part of it too. But do I think Canada tunes into this Cup Final? Yes. Whether it is to cheer or boo the Oilers, there will be a huge audience in Canada. The U.S. markets that show up will always show up. Buffalo, Detroit, Pittsburgh always have strong cup ratings. They'll be watching. They'll be rooting for somebody. Miami's actually a really good market, and now they're making the final 2 years in a row. That's a top 10 media market in the United States. So that is something else. And I don't think people think about that when they're like, well, Florida, how big's the market? It's Miami. Okay. Like it's a big metro media market. And so that is important for the NHL, especially with the growth of the game. You want to continue to grow the game in Florida, which it has been for 20, 30 years now. Like Florida's a good market. But man, it's just, if you're in the Southwest, who do you pull for? Do you pull for the Oilers because they're on the West Coast ish? If you're a Utah fan, do you identify more with the guys from the land of ice and snow? Or maybe you remember Wayne Gretzky when he came to the Kings in that big trade, 1989. Maybe you're around for that. And you remember how it really revitalized the game on the West Coast and later led to West Coast expansion. There's reasons, even for Utah fans who are watching this and maybe just tuning in, or maybe, you're picking a favorite player here, and there are a lot of players to pick, and Connor McDavid is an excellent one to pick, but there's a lot of awesome guys on the Panthers too. It's just, there's so many storylines in it, but I love it because I think these two completely different styles of hockey, everybody likes to follow a blueprint, Robyn, and this is why I'm so happy about these two different styles making it. Everybody likes to follow a blueprint. It's a copycat league. Who do you copy? Who do you copy? The run and gun Oilers, who really haven't had much of a defense. They've had a better one this year, but still not much of a defense, really not much goaltending. But man, they can score goals and they can hang on to the puck.
One of the best offenses in the league that we've seen.
Right. The power play is amazing. It's historically good. But go ahead.
Which is amazing too, that we're talking I want to bring this up too, that we're talking about a team like that the Edmonton Oilers in the Cup Final. And this was something that was talked about on Twitter by other hockey fans, where you take a look at beginning of the season where they lost to the San Jose Sharks, who were I think at the time on a record-breaking 17-game losing streak, whatever it was. And there's oh my God, the Oilers lost to the Sharks. How bad can they be? So everyone was saying this team is only going down from here. There's no way they're even come close to the Stanley Cup. Well, it turns out the two teams that that played in that game, the Sharks and the Oilers, one's about to draft Macklin Celebrini. The other one's just 4 wins away from the Stanley Cup. How did we even get there? That's amazing.
It really is. It really is. And for the history buffs, Florida has been to the Cup Final, never won it. They're one of the franchises that is yet to win a Stanley Cup in the NHL. Edmonton's last win was 1990. That was after the trade of Gretzky, but they still had Messier. They played the Bruins in that Cup Final. They won that year. That was the last time that they lifted the cup. So, and again, Montreal was the last Canadian team to win it in 93. So you've got a healthy drought, 31 years since a Canadian team has lifted the cup. And I have friends on both sides, just me personally, one of my good friends is the voice of the Oilers. And, I was watching Jack's Facebook feed as he was preparing to leave, Jack Michaels, and, just get ready for this trip. And he's only going for 2 games, but he brought the biggest suitcase I've ever seen, with him. And but it's one of those things where I'm like, man, and I sent him a text. I said, you got to enjoy this moment, take a deep breath and just savor it. Yeah, because you never know when your team's gonna make it to the final at any level. So it's a special time of year. And if you're gonna put me on the spot to make a pick, I think the Panthers win, probably in 6. But that doesn't mean I don't think the Oilers have a chance. They absolutely do, but they're gonna have to play their best hockey in order to beat the Panthers.
I feel like they proved a lot of people wrong beating Dallas, because Dallas, I think many people thought was the unbeatable team at this point, because you saw how well they played. Yes, did they run out of gas towards the end of this run? Yeah, sure. But I feel like everyone still thought they were the unbeatable team, and Edmonton kind of outlasted them. I feel like having that energy and keeping that up is the very reason why I'm picking Edmonton to win the cup at this point. Also, again, I'd like to see Connor McDavid lift it, because dude's one of the best players we've ever seen. And I feel like winning a cup only cements that affirmation.
And let's be fair. If Edmonton's going to win the cup, he has to be the best player. Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid must be 1A, 1B, the best players on either team for them to win.
It's going to end up leading to a McDavid Conn Smythe winner. Like if it's I don't think I just can't see there being any other way around that.
Yeah, it really could. It really could. It's the battle is set. I can't wait. It's going to be a fun final. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Actually, we are way over time at this point.
It's a good show, though. We didn't even talk about the Stanley Pup.
I know we have to talk about that. I'm like, you know what? We're running out of time, but we have to talk about this because the Stanley Pup, I loved. So, Tom, back when I think what did they call it? The Puppy Bowl became a thing. The Puppy Bowl. When the Puppy Bowl became a thing, everyone loved that because they would like during commercial breaks or during breaks, whatever, people would turn to the Puppy Bowl and see what's going on, see all the dogs out there, get awareness for adoption. It was a very sweet, lighthearted thing, and everyone loved it. The Stanley Cup is following, the NHL, they're kind of following suit. We're going to be seeing the Stanley Pup. A very similar situation. It's the very similar kind of event where you can have these dogs put up adoption, and they're put on this, essentially given that extra spotlight.
That's right. So Friday, June 7th at 8 Eastern on ESPN Plus and NHL Network, and then Saturday, June 8th, 6 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be in Canada. They're going to replay it the following week. But I love these names. Check this out. So you've got Nathan McKibble, Joe Pozleski, Connor McDoodle, Mark Bone, Quinn Chews, Roman Yorkie. How do you not love these? Adam Foxhound, David Pupsternak, Brady Sharpay, Sergei Bobrovsky, and Austin Matthews, just to name a few. I love it. Whoever got into the naming of these, Nikita Kucherov, I love it. So it's going to be a lot of fun, but these are all dogs that'll be up for adoption. It's a 90-minute program. And you know what? I'm a big fan of Adopt, Don't Shop. I have a lot of furry friends in my life and my family's life. I think animals are just the best companions of all time. And I'm excited to see this. And I hope that, folks, even if you can adopt right now, that maybe you're able to support some of the great organizations. But the Stanley Pup's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. It's East versus West. I don't know who I want to take. I don't know. I'm torn.
I think maybe we'll decide as it's going on, because I feel like at this point you just can't yet.
No, and you know what? There's going to be a favorite. There always is, right? There's going to be a runaway. Everybody loves somebody. Maybe it's Mark Bone or David Pupsternak, but yeah, I can't wait. I'm so excited. And Connor McDoodle is adorable.
I just love the creative names that they have. That's always my favorite thing. It does remind me that, when they had a couple NHL teams had like those service dogs, like, in training,
right?
We're giving them names. And I'm going to go to Vegas as an example when they had Bark Andre Furry.
Yes,
I loved that. Like, that was like, oh my God, it's amazing.
You've also got, here's a couple other winners: Alex Ovechkin.
I love that.
Anders Leash. Some of them they're just so good. Yeah, there was another one I wanted to bring up that and then so some of them, by the way, do have their real names in there, and they all do. Like, so Flamingo is actually Nikita Kucherov, but they're moonlighting. So, and Andrei Kopitarf. So I
love that.
Yeah, it's gonna be
it's just so many great names. So, and again, for all, you got the names plus also just the cause, a very good reason to tune in to the Stanley Pup, because again, you're supporting a good cause. And again, even if you can't, adopt right now, but you still support the organization that's taking care of it, which is absolutely amazing.
NHL.com has got all your Stanley Pup info, so I know you're going to be glued to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 100%. Any final thoughts before we close things off on today's episode?
I'm looking forward to as the names narrow down here for Utah. I think that's kind of part of the fun. But the other thing I want to remind people of, number one, if you were thinking about maybe or maybe not watching the final, watch the final. You will not be sorry. This is going to be one of the best Stanley Cup Finals we've seen in recent memory, and I can guarantee
If
that.
if you are thinking about getting into hockey, if you've never really truly like maybe you've watched a couple games, but you kind of like weren't really like truly into the sport yet, but you're thinking about it, this is your time to do it. I said that when the Stanley Cup playoffs started, but the Stanley Cup final between these two teams, a very awesome, like there's so many reasons why like you should tune in now. Plus, if you ever have any questions, I'm pretty sure we can be able to help you guys out. Learn about hockey as you get ready for your NHL Utah club. So by the time the season starts, you'll all be hockey experts.
Well, that's the hope, or at the very least, you're going to have an opinion, and that's the important part. Is once you know enough to form an opinion, then we get you going from there. So, but it's going to be fantastic to watch, and don't forget the draft is right around the corner. You got the Stanley Pup, the Memorial Cup just wrapped up. We got so much going on right now. It's a great time of year to be a hockey fan, and then free agency hits, and that's a huge time for Utah as well. So, Locked On Utah, we got a lot to lock on to.
We will certainly have so much to talk about. And like you said, we got some draft content coming your way. We got the mock draft for the Locked On NHL. We got other prospect experts who are going to be making their way onto the show, kind of talk about very important guys. Like who will the Utah club draft? Will they draft they're based off their MO and draft a guy like Anton Salayev, or will they draft a highly skilled guy like Zane Perek? We've already had episodes talking about that, but we'll go more in depth the more we get the closer we get to the draft as we get ready for Utah's number 6 pick. And of course, as you mentioned, Tom, we'll talk about the upcoming free agency period. Plus, we'll get to all of that on Locked On NHL in Utah. But that's it for today's episode. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, drop a like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already, or if you're watching on YouTube, hit that notification bell as well so you get notified every time a new episode drops. And interact with us on social media. We are on the app formerly known as Twitter, now known as X, at LO_NHL Utah. I am at Robyn_Leano. That's Robyn with the Y_LEANO. Tom Callahan is at Callahan on Air. You can interact with us, ask the question you might have. We might interact right back or on a future episode of the Locked On NHL in Utah podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode, and we'll see you guys next time.